COASTER-net Uncut. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the very first COASTER-net Uncut of the new year. As you can see, we have a brand new setup, some brand new colors. We've ditched the red. We got some new. I don't even know what color that is, to be honest with you, Danny Miller. It's something. It's different. But we are here tonight. It's 2018, Danny, and tonight, fittingly, we are going to talk about the new coasters of 2018. Every year we've done, except for last year, we did a most.
Well, yeah, we didn't really do the most anticipated because I think we talked about like the 3 rides that we were looking forward to. Now, 2017 didn't actually end up being too bad of a year, for traveling to parks. But I mean, in terms of new rides, we only had a handful of good ones, at least around us. The Ride Warrior Choice Awards coming up here, the voting is over, so in a couple weeks the results are going to be revealed as to what our fans thought what their favorite new ride of 2017 was. And you and I kind of went through the results the other day, and we did have a surprising number of votes go to some rides we didn't expect. But I'll let you use that as a segue into what the topic is for tonight.
So tonight, as opposed to last year, we are going to talk about the best new rides of 2018, the most anticipated new rides, as we like to say.
We're not revealing anything, Andy.
No. We got one of the rides. It's the only T-shirt. Actually, I could have worn my Steele Vengeance T-shirt tonight too, probably, because I'm assuming we're going to find it on this list as well, just from the clatter.
It might squeak into the top 10, but I mean, California's Great America. I mean, let's give them credit. They created an entire T-shirt around something that we came up with. State Route 1, folks. There it is, right there in red.
Look at that. It's in red. Like, come
hilarious.
on.
Had nothing to do with the ride.
So what we did tonight is, if you've ever watched this show before, the most anticipated show that is, we usually I give my rankings and you give your rankings, and we average them together to come up with like a top 5 or a top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this year in the Ride Warrior Choice Awards, we decided to actually ask you guys what you felt were the most anticipated rides of 2018.
That's right.
And so this time around, we're going to average that number into the overall number as well. So we actually have 3 votes counting: my vote, your vote, and everyone else's vote.
That's right. So it's actually interesting here because, this is something, like you said, we haven't done this before. We've never in the history of the Ride Warrior Choice Awards actually asked what the most anticipated ride of the upcoming season, which would be 2018. We thought that would be an interesting one to do, and we could factor it in to this show this year, since we do have so many good rides seemingly coming in 2018. It shouldn't. We're not going to bury the hatchet quite, but it shouldn't be much of a surprise what's going to be number 1. But there was a very interesting race amongst all the others. So at least from your folks' perspective. So we're going to go through the combined top 10 list once you average together Andy's vote, my vote, and then the viewers' vote, your folks' vote, the fans' vote.
Much like the voting in the Estates Generale before the French Revolution here, Danny. I get one vote, and the commoners get one vote.
Well, and here's the thing: if you want to impress someone here, if you want to, if you're one of the teenagers that's going to watch, the Ride Warrior Choice Awards over a weekend at home or something, and you want to impress your friends or your parents, watch this show first, and then when in the Ride Warrior Choice Awards show, when we get to the most anticipated ride of 2018. Predict the top 10 order exactly from the results we give you in this show, and you'll look like to use a Coaster radio term, you'll look like Coaster-Damus.
Yeah, or the old Karnak, as they used to say in the day.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's start. We actually have a tie at number 10 here. So we'll.
Oh, of course, because we can't just have 10.
No, we can't have 10. We got to have 11.
Got to break rule number 1 of a top 10 list.
we have a tie, and the tie belongs to. There are 2 coasters. One of which we're not even sure if it is a coaster yet. But one obviously is the Harley Quinn Skywarp that's going into Discovery Kingdom.
Yes.
So we really haven't seen that one in operation yet. So Skyline
that was on your list, right?
Well, it's going to be a ride that I'm probably going to get to. That there is a major California trip in my future. As of tonight, I think it looks very likely. So Harley Quinn is one that I think I'm going to get to ride. I'm going to actually have to see it in operation first before I deem something a roller coaster or not. I just don't take the word of, other enthusiasts or manufacturers. I give the final word on what is and is not a roller coaster.
Well, and that's the correct way to approach it. So I personally did not have that on my top 10 list, although that is one I will probably get out to ride. I am looking at both Northern and Southern California for 2018. We'll see, but Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, I believe, will be on the list as well. That is actually one that not a single voter out of 386 voters voted for in the audience. So we're throwing the audience to the side here to begin because nobody voted for that one. But what was it tied with?
Well, you didn't vote for it either. I was the only one who voted.
No, I didn't vote for it either. It didn't crack my list.
And this doesn't make sense to me. Like I understand because everyone's putting down their number 1 most anticipated ride in this, so it's not like we're averaging a top 10. I think if you would put more than just one selection,
might have been there.
Might have seen this come up. Obviously, I have 10 selections here, so I get a little bit more voice in this.
I probably would have had it 12 because 11 for me would have been the Cyborg flat ride that's coming to Great Adventure. I
don't know. We've heard so much discussion about this Harley Quinn coaster, about these Skywarps for just about a whole year now. I'm actually somewhat pretty excited to get on this.
I mean, I'm excited for it too, but the thing is, I've ridden the Larson Loop, so even though this is different, in respect, it kind of does sort of the same thing. Now, whether or not it's a roller coaster or not, I don't know, but it kind of does the same thing, so it's like I kind of know what to expect, whereas the Cyborg flat ride is a bit more unique. Like, I've never seen anything like that before.
Okay, well, also at 10... we also have the other ride of Hyperion. Now, this is the new Intamin hypercoaster out in Poland at Energylandia, I believe it is.
Yeah, we might have the accent on the wrong syllable there, but,
Now, this is one that neither of us had ranked, but was ranked exclusively by you guys in the Ride Warrior Choice Awards, that we had quite a few people say that this is one of their more anticipated rides. I got a chance to actually take a look at it. It looks like a fine roller coaster. It looks like your standard, hyper out and back, almost a B&M type layout.
Yep.
To the point of a 4-across seating on Intamin all of a sudden. When did Intamin start doing 4-across seating?
Skyrush?
I guess.
I mean, that's kind of the closest thing they've had to 4-across, right? But no, this looks like a really exciting ride. And isn't this the one that a long time ago the park actually posted a video of an Intamin layout and then a Vekoma layout, and they kind of put it up to the fans to say which one they like better? And I think they ended up voting for the, obviously the Intamin. I'm not sure if they solely based it on the fan vote, but they gave fans the opportunity to look at two slightly different layouts, but this is one that actually this is one that you and I kind of overlooked when we were making the ballot, because I don't think it had a name yet when we actually made the ballot. But this is one that people wrote in, and it was actually in a 3-way tie for 5th place. Now, we need to throw a disclaimer up here right away, because in the most anticipated of 2018, at the time that we made the ballot, we put Fly at Phantasialand on the ballot, and after voting had started, it actually was revealed that that's a 2019 ride. So we had that on the ballot for a fair amount of time, and people voted for it. So Fly actually would have been second here, but we're kind of making that null and void because it's not a 2018 ride at this point. But that would have been second. So
it would be pretty silly to anticipate something for 2018. That's
yeah.
It would almost be like Lightning Rod or Merlin's Mayhem or something.
Well, yes, exactly. Well, Merlin's Mayhem, definitely. That actually could have gone on this list, although we wouldn't have been able to put it on there until, last week because Dutch Wonderland, 3 days before the new year, finally decided to announce it wasn't opening in 2017. Thanks for that, Dutch Wonderland. Thanks for the hint there at the end of the calendar year.
Oh.
Virtue of Fly being eliminated off the list, and we're way off topic already. So we're having fun tonight, right? So Hyperion is actually in a 3-way tie for 5th. We'll talk about some of the other ones that it's tied with a little bit later. But Hyperion in a 3-way tie for 5th amongst the voters because we do have a very nice overseas reach. So Hyperion 5th in the voters' opinion.
So speaking of rides without names, we actually get to number 9 here, and you may just you may just want to turn off your screen.
Can we move on, please?
Number 9 is the world's largest super loop. Now, if you've seen the update that,
and we know who the only person between the 3 of us, me, you, and the audience, we know who the only person who casted a vote for that, because once again, not a single vote at a 386 had this as their most anticipated ride.
I don't know how that's possible, Danny Miller.
Yes, you do.
I'm befuddled right now. I'm befuddled because this to me is like I'm surprised it's only at number 9 on list.
The Slinky Dog-Coaster at Walt Disney World got more votes than this. One.
Oh my God. Well, if you watched the update, Danny, I know you did. I know I've actually tracked it. I can track to see who watches what on YouTube. I know you've watched it at least 100 times. The show of me and Mr. One Rob Dole. And when we talked about the true significance of this super loop and why it's going to be so important when it opens up at Great America, I don't want to get into it. Just go watch that show, and you can have at least 10 minutes of fun and knowledge, basically.
Let me put this in perspective. Of the 386 voters this year, nobody put the Larson Loop at Six Flags Great America as their most anticipated ride. One person actually wrote in and said, I'm not looking forward to anything. It's all garbage. More people thought that every ride opening in 2018 is garbage than did so thought the Larson Loop was the most anticipated ride. Just to put it in perspective. All right, number 8.
To each his own, as I say. So
I guess.
So moving on to number 8. Number 8 is actually Icon, which came in at number 3 on the Ride Warrior Choice Awards. It's not coming on my list or your list. Now, keep in mind that when we rank this, when I personally rank it, these are things that I reasonably expect to get on within the next, maybe not so much this season, but the next few seasons, and I think you rank generally the same way. So I guess there's a chance I could get on Icon. There's pretty much slim to no chance that you would get onto Icon anytime soon. And obviously Icon is at that one park over in England.
Been making the news a lot this week.
It's making the news a lot this week that everyone just seems to love and cherish and really have good things to say about it. But maybe those harsh feelings that they have today will go away when Icon opens up, and maybe that's the one solace here. I don't think so. Not.
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know. As you said, Icon got 3 points from the Ride Warrior Choice Awards. Came in 8th overall in the top 10 list. I actually had Icon at 5 on my. I had Icon number 5, and I'll tell you why. Because I saw it being constructed while I was over there, and we were actually given a nice presentation by a gentleman. I believe his name was Roland. I think was the gentleman's name, who gave us a little behind-the-scenes tour and a little Blackpool history presentation at the Academy they have there. And they showed us some videos of Icon, and it really looks spectacular. And I think the underrated part of Icon is going to be the fact that it has so many near misses with so many other rides nearby. It's going to go near the Avalanche ride. It's going to go, through the Big One structure. It's going to be a very large ride that covers a lot of ground in the middle of Blackpool Pleasure Beach. So Icon is definitely one I'm looking forward to. It's the kind of ride that makes me want to go back to the UK. And we talk, people say, well, if you would have waited one more year to go to the UK, you could have ridden it. It's like, yeah, but when you do like 12 parks like we did, or 11 parks like you did, almost every park's going to be building something a year. So at some point you got to just go, and then it gives you a reason to go back.
True, but you're actually missing two big rides next year.
We are, and the other one we're actually going to get to. I think shortly here, eventually as well. But Icon, I had number 5 on my personal list because it's a ride that makes me want to go back to the UK and back to Blackpool.
So number 7 overall, that is the first ride, I believe. Is it? It is not. No, it is the first ride that appears on all 3 of our lists, I believe. Correct?
Okay, because Icon wasn't on your list?
Icon was not on my list.
Okay, so which one is this then? Here,
so this is the first one that is on all 3 of our lists. This is Twisted Cyclone, that great RMC down at Six Flags Over Georgia that people cried about. One, namely the person sitting next to me, cried for you. Oh, you cried and cried.
No! I cried about Georgia Cyclone. I didn't cry about Twisted Cyclone. I said Twisted Cyclone looks good.
Yeah. So, but you cried when they closed Georgia Cyclone.
I did.
You were one of the few people, and then people cried when they announced Twisted Cyclone. But this is one. So on the Ride Warrior Choice Awards, this came in at number 9. On my list, I have it at 10, and then on your list,
I have it much higher.
Yeah, you have it much higher because you're probably going to get down there more than I am. So
yeah.
where's it on your list?
It's actually number 3 on my list, and I'll tell you why. It's number 3 on my list. Number 1 because I'm glad that at least in some regard, because there was time where you and I speculated during the teaser campaign that the Georgia Cyclone was being torn down for a free fly. And,
here we speculated that. We never bought into that theory.
No, I don't think we ever believed that was actually going to happen, but there were a lot of people who thought it would happen. We speculated it, but I think we knew this was RMC all the way. I went to Six Flags Over Georgia last year. Excuse me, for the closing of the Georgia Cyclone. So I'm really glad that at least the Georgia Cyclone does live on in some regard here, and hopefully an improved manner. I would probably agree, this is going to bury the hatchet a little bit with it being number 3 on my list, but I think it's going to be the weakest of the 3 RMCs, but I still think it's going to be, I think this is going to be the forgotten ride of 2018 because there's so many other good rides coming out. I think this is going to be the one that people forget about. It's very easy for me to get down to Atlanta. I can take a direct flight from Syracuse, and I'm down there in about 2.5 hours. I can go for a weekend if I want. I'll definitely probably go sometime in the middle of the summer when it's open, and then maybe if I enjoy it enough, because you and I both really enjoy Six Flags Over Georgia.
I do.
They have a really good ride collection. So, if it's good enough, I may find myself down there again a second time before the season's over. But that's definitely one I'm going to get to, barring any unforeseen circumstance. So I had this one at number 3, mainly because I think it's going to be an underappreciated one, and it's one that I'm definitely going to get to. And I'm glad it's not something else.
Yeah. Number 6 on our list. We actually, when we made these lists a few days ago, actually. So we weren't quite sure what the name of this one was. Just recently, they announced that Wicker Man is officially coming to Alton Towers in 2018. That's right. Secret Weapon 8. So Wicker Man is number 6. Now, I had this one at number 9 on my list.
Okay.
And Wicker Man was on number...
This was
6, right?
This was part of that 5-way tie, or the 3-way tie for number 5.
Ah, yes. I forgot. So that's what was throwing me off here. So we had a 3-way tie in the Ride Warrior Choice Awards for number 5, and Wicker Man was part of that. Where did you have this on your list?
I have Wicker Man 7, which might surprise some people that I actually have it lower than Icon, and the reason being, number one, even though I saw this ride being built, and people know I am a huge fan of GCI coasters and wood coasters in general, and obviously folks know by now that I absolutely love Alton Towers, and I'm going to love the theming that they have with this. The reason I have it a little bit lower at number 7 is because it's about the size of Invader, and it looks as if it's going to be better than Invader, if for no other reason because it's going to have much more extensive theming.
Yeah.
But that being said, in terms of the ride itself, I would expect it to maybe be in the Invader White Lightning type of discussion. I don't think this is a Gold Striker. I don't know that this is like a Mystic Timbers. I don't think it's in that caliber of GCI coaster. I don't think it's quite there. I think this is more of, because I think it's only about 50 feet tall. Now, as we talked about the other night, the height difference from the tallest to the lowest point is something I think in the 80-foot range or so. So that's some pretty good size, but it's still on the smaller end. And it is a bit of a shorter ride. So I think this ride is going to rely heavily on the theming to rank highly. Still, certainly one that I'm very excited for. And again, the fact that this is going to Alton Towers, a park that has so many great things but is missing that signature wood coaster, that makes it very exciting for the folks in the UK, especially the big Alton Tower fans, like myself. This is really going to kind of complete that park in a way. If Invader completed Busch Gardens Williamsburg, it might have missed the mark slightly in terms of the thrill factor. I think they were looking for more of a family ride. I think this is going to have a bit more thrill to it than Invader does down at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. So I have it number 7 there, and below Icon, maybe only because I expect Icon to be the more marquee, top-of-the-line thrill coaster, whereas this, I think, is going to be a nice middle-of-the-road, well-themed coaster.
Yeah. Now, the next one that we have on the list will be coming in at number 5 here. Now, for the purposes of this, we threw the 2 single rails together, Wonder Woman and Railblazer, because, Danny, honestly, how do you separate these 2 rides? They're clones of each other. They're on 2 very different parts of the country. So what we saw happen is, some people, voted for Wonder Woman because they were closer to Texas, probably expected to get there. Some people voted for Railblazer because they hate Six Flags.
Well, and here's how this worked. So this one actually came in at number 4 on the Ride Warrior Choice Awards after we threw out Fly. And the reason we threw them together is because Wonder Woman actually got more votes, and Wonder Woman alone would have been number 4, and Railblazer would have been down at number 10. So, but when we combined them together, they still would have been at number 4. So for the sake of this list, we threw them together because it didn't really change the order. So we decided to throw them together as well. I personally had the single rails at number 9 on my list just because I had them a little bit lower for the sense that I'm just not as excited about them as I am. I don't think they're going to be as good a rides as a ride like Icon or Wicker Man, even though I'll hopefully get to ride both this year. I don't see them being top of the line coasters. Again, I think these are kind of middle of the road, good, almost transition coasters. I think the inversions are almost oddly placed, because if these rides didn't have inversions, I think you would be tempted to call these family coasters in terms of the size, the speed. But the fact that you've got a couple inversions in there, I think really kind of puts it in that thrill category here. So again, this was number 4 for the fans and the voters, but I had it down at number 9. Where did you have it?
It was also 4 for me as well.
Okay.
I don't know how to take these rides. I think that's the problem, is I don't know how to take these rides that on paper they look pretty standard. They look smooth. They look like they'll have some good fun spots to them. I said when they announced them, are these world beaters? I don't think so. Are these things that people are going to be talking about in their top 10s? Only the RMC fanboys are.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, you and I kind of made the comparison that if it had a holding brake on it, it would almost be like it was a dive coaster that was shrunk down to half the size. Because when you look at Valraven, how many inversions does Valraven have? 3. And how many inversions do these have? Do they have 3? They have the dive loop, 2 or 3. So, they have 3 because they have the dive loop, then they have like the cutback thing, and then the corkscrew. So they have 3 inversions. The drop is basically vertical, right? And it's about 115 feet tall or so, these two things. So, and when you look at it in terms of elements and track length, they're kind of comparable if you take out the height difference. So in a way, it's almost like these are smaller dive coasters without the holding brake with a regular train on them. So maybe I think in terms of ranking these rides after you've ridden them, that might be a best case scenario to put them in a class with like a Griffin, a Sheikra, or a Valraven.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious to ride these. Maybe not so much even for the for the actual ride itself, but just to see how they're going to operate, how it's going to play out. That so much has been talked about with the dispatches, with how they're going to dispatch, with is this going to be a nightmare? I'm more interested in some of that too, just to see how this ride
how they handle it.
And if what we said comes true, or if what other people said comes true, I'm interested. So I'm anticipating. And the thing about the bottom line is too, a lot of people are going to be talking about these rides, no matter what level they're at. People are going to be talking about these 2 single rails. Probably, like you said, more so Wonder Woman than Railblazer, because I think a lot of people are going to make their way to Texas next year. Maybe not so many out to San Francisco, but we'll see. Mm-hmm. So the next one on the list then is number 4 is Hang Time. Almost I want to say, the late comer to the game. Because Cedar Fair was playing the games all summer long, and nowhere, Knott's is getting a roller coaster, and it's Hang Time. And maybe Hang Time, having time to digest the entire 2018 lineup, I put Hang Time at number 2 as my now, and mainly it is going to be because of the ride experience here. That I absolutely loved Monster. I thought Monster was a fine ride out at Adventureland in Iowa. I think this has a lot similar to Monster. There's a whole lot different too. I'm not going to pretend like this isn't a completely different ride. But there's a whole lot different here. But I feel that Hang Time might be the sleeper hit of 2018. And I almost, being on RMC overload all the time here,
it's nice to get something different.
It's something different. If you haven't been on Monster, I think it's going to surprise a whole lot of people, especially on the West Coast. That where's the nearest, Gerstlauer out there? The closest thing you have is maybe Cannibal. But Cannibal
gives a very different ride than Monster does, and I think it does. I think Monster, you talked to.
I think if you take away the height from Cannibal, if you take away that first drop, I think the ride experience on the 2 are the overall feeling of how you get on the ride. Obviously, the elements are extremely different. How you run through the course. But just the way the ride rides, they feel like they were made by the same people.
I'll give you that. I think, and you said this because you rode them very close to each other last season. Right, and I rode Cannibal last year, or 2 years ago, I guess, and then rode Monster this past year with you. And I was saying to you, you said you preferred Monster. I was like, well, Cannibal's so much bigger and it's got the theming. Like, how is Monster better? And then after riding Monster, I was like, yeah, this is the better ride. I think Monster has so much to it. When you look at the when you look at the layout of Monster, there's so much to it in terms of the elements, and not even the inversions, like even the overbank turns and the little top hat after the first drop, and then that little, the trim brake that goes into like the Stangle dive where there's amazing hang time, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Hang time to me at Knott's has a lot of the inversions that Monster does, but it doesn't have the little elements in between the inversions that Monster has that I think sets up the inversions. We talked about how, you and I talked about with Adam the Beard Man, we talked about how Monster had such incredible pacing the entire way, and how it had some fast parts, it had some slow parts, it had some intense parts, it had some graceful parts. And all the way through that ride, each element set up the next, set up the next, set up the next, and it was a perfect sequence of elements, whereas Knott's hang time to me looks like it's all about inversions with like an airtime hill thrown in, and then it hits the brake run after the Cobra roll, where to me it feels like you need a few more elements after. So I only had a hang time at number 6. I expect it to be a fun ride like Monster. I don't think it'll be quite as good as Monster, but if the elements it has performs as well as Monster's elements do, then it's going to be a damn good ride, and it'll probably be higher than number 6 when we revisit this list at the end of 2018. But I'm not going in expecting Monster. I'm going in expecting, maybe something a little smaller, because, it is a little bit smaller than Monster. But we'll see. It does have some different elements than Monster, too. It's going to be a very different ride. The question is whether or not a different ride will make it as good of a ride, because would you agree that Monster is the goal here? If you can build a ride that's as good as Monster, you've built a very good ride, and if it's close, that's still a success?
Yeah, I think if you get anywhere close to Monster, it's a success for Cedar Fair. I don't think you will, because I'm not sold on that first drop. I think that first drop's going to be underwhelming because of the holding brake, because they wanted to make it a dive coaster. And the lighting package, now granted, we didn't actually get to see the full lighting package because we went there in a day and the sun didn't set yet on Monster. But I am a little bit confused as to the all-white lights on hang time.
Yeah, I thought they said that they were going to, and it looked like they were going to be able to change colors like the Monster one, but it sounds like that maybe that's not the case. I don't know.
The POV that they posted the other day showed only white light being used, and I don't know if that was just a matter of the POV that they used, but every single, even the initial images that came out of Knott's during the announcement showed white light, never showed colored light. I kind of expected maybe blue light, if anything, but I don't know.
Yeah, blue, or maybe like the coral pink or the orangish yellow that's in the logo. But hang time should be a good ride. I had it number 6. You said you had it number 2, and that was the other ride that was in the 3-way tie for 5th with Hyperion and Wickerman from the fans. So no, definitely looking forward to hang time. And at the end of the day, it's much better than a Vekoma Boomerang. So, I think that much is clear. Yeah. So, hopefully this comes in somewhere between like a Monster and like a Fahrenheit. It kind of makes you, the layout kind of makes you think Fahrenheit at first. So I think it'll be better than that for sure. But hang time should be a good ride.
So now we move on to the top 3 most anticipated rides. And I think these 3, I think most people coming into this could probably have wagered a pretty good guess as to what these 3 were going to be. Maybe not so much the order here, but number 3 is actually Time Traveler. Yes. Now, me personally, I did not have Time Traveler very high. I have it at number 7. The Ride Warrior Choice Awards came in at number 2. So a lot of people excited about
very slim number 2.
And here's my thinking. Time Traveler looks like a good ride, but I'll tell you what, Danny. There's a lot about Time Traveler that I'm not completely sold on, and I'm worried that Time Traveler, with the controlled spin, with maybe the launches, does Time Traveler become more like, I don't know, Fire Chaser Express? That's what I worry about with Time Traveler, that they've hyped it up for all this new technology, this new experience, but it seems like they keep saying in every release, this is a family ride. But when you add up all the facts together, it doesn't seem like a family ride. And I'm thinking maybe the park's right, and maybe it is a family ride, and this is going to be more like Fire Chase.
Well, and I think that's the real question here, because when you hear them talk about it, you want to say, okay, it's a family ride. But when you look at the facts, it's got a vertical drop with a holding brake. It's got multi-launch. It's a spinning coaster, controlled spin, whatever. But it's a spinning coaster. It's got inversions. It's lap bars only, right? There's no shoulder harnesses on this. So I'm really struggling to see where that all adds up to family coaster. Because take a ride like
where it is.
Well,
it adds up in speed. So if the speed's not there, then this certainly becomes a family coaster to me.
Well, and you know, I think of a ride like Cheetah Hunt, for example, because Cheetah Hunt is one of those weird rides that we don't classify Cheetah Hunt as a family coaster.
No.
But I ask you this. If it didn't have the barrel roll in the middle of the ride, then it has no inversions. Does it then become a family ride? Because when you think about what it does...
It's too fast. It's 0 to Cheetah, Danny.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, but it seems like the inversion almost puts it in that category, because, you know, when you're growing up, something that you say is like, well, I don't do upside down roller coasters. When you're like, a lot of kids say, well, I don't go upside down. So, you know, it seems like if you're going to do a spinning coaster and you're going to market it as a family coaster, why would you put multiple inversions in it if you're trying to pitch it as a family coaster? Because Busch Gardens didn't pitch Cheetah Hunt as a family coaster. And has there been a park in the past that has pitched a ride with inversions as a family coaster? I'm trying to think of an example of a park that's pitched a ride with multiple inversions as a family coaster. Like Verbolten has been pitched as a family coaster, but Verbolten, if you took out the vertical drop, would certainly...
Verbolten's too fast to be a family coaster. Like
Verbolten was pitched as a family coaster, but I think it became more of a thrill coaster, but it doesn't have inversion, so you could convince someone easily that hasn't ridden it it's a family coaster. If you try and convince someone who's looking at Time Traveler it's a family coaster, they're going to see a giant loop, and they're going to see the cars spinning and say, oh no, that's going to make me sick.
Yeah.
So that's where the pitching of Time... I think Time Traveler is going to be a really fun ride, but I think the marketing of it is very strange. I personally had Time Traveler at number 4 because it's again probably one I'm going to get to. You know, we keep saying we're going to get to all these, but this is one that I'm probably going to get to. And again, this was number 2 from the voters. People are getting excited about this.
Well, Danny, you're gonna set me off on a rant again, and there's a group of voters that no matter what Silver Dollar City put out on that release, they would be more excited about that because it's not Cedar Fair and it's not Six Flags.
Yeah, you're right about that.
There's a group of voters like that, and it's a large group of voters, and sometimes they're made up of a certain club. I don't know, but
here we go. All right, shall we move on to number 2?
Should we move on? Yes. Number 2, obviously with Time Traveler being revealed as number 3. Number 2 is going to be Twisted Timbers down at King's Dominion. Now, Twisted Timbers actually came in at number 3 on the Ride Warrior Choice Awards. Mm-hmm. Number 3 on my personal list. And Danny, where did you place Twisted Timbers?
So Twisted Timbers, I'm going to surprise some people here. I actually had Twisted Timbers as my number 1, and I'll tell you why. Steele Vengeance, and obviously it's going to be no surprise that Steele Vengeance is number 1 here. Yeah. It shouldn't be. 45 minutes ago you should have known that. But Twisted Timbers for me, it's a little bit closer to me. Okay, I get to King's Dominion pretty much every year as it is. So I'll definitely go at least once, probably twice, maybe even 3 times. We'll see. It depends on how good this ride is. But to me, Twisted Timbers, I think, is what Twisted Timbers looks like the ride that I wanted out of Storm Chaser. Because when we heard that Storm Chaser was, or Twisted twins was becoming Storm Chaser, and the POV came out and said, well, it doesn't look like it's everything it could be. Twisted Timbers to me is what I wanted out of Storm Chaser, and I'm very, very eager to ride it. It sounds like at the end of March. I'm very eager to ride that and see if it is what I really wanted Storm Chaser to be, because for you and me, Storm Chaser is a nice ride, but it's just not in that world-class category. It misses the mark in terms of what some of the other RMC coasters do. And the thing for me with Steele Vengeance, because I'll explain yourself, right? Steele Vengeance has so much hype behind it, and Steele Vengeance is being billed as there's people there's people who submitted Steel Coaster rankings for the Ride Warrior Choice Awards this year and had Steele Vengeance as their #1 steel coaster. That's what we're talking about here. There's people all over the internet, all over the community, proclaiming this as the best steel roller coaster ever built, and the damn thing hasn't made a single cycle yet. And we have to take a step back here. And it seems like we've gotten into this the last several years here. It seems like we've gotten into this trend where we see a new ride being built and we immediately bill it as that's going to be my new #1 coaster. And you and I...
Well, the last few years you might have been right, because you look at Fury 325.
Well, but hold on a second.
It's won that lightning rod is won.
Yeah. Well, there's something to that, but let the record show. Go back to shows in the off season between 2014 and 2015, and go back to when we did this very show 3 years ago, when we were talking about the most anticipated rides of 2015. And if you go back, and I don't know if you remember this, we did not have Fury as our #1 rides because we thought it would just be a bigger Intimidator, a bigger version, because we rode Leviathan, and Leviathan was not my favorite B&M. I like Behemoth better than Leviathan. I like Apollo's Chariot. You're going to chuckle at that one. Fine. But Leviathan is not my favorite B&M mega coaster, and it never was. So you and I thought we were going to get a lot of speed, and you and I looked at Fury and said, there's no airtime in the front half. There's only a few airtime hills in the second half, and how silly do we look 3 years later saying something like that? But this is how a lot of people felt. This wasn't.
What did we have as #1?
We had Wicked Cyclone as #1.
Oh.
We had Wicked Cyclone.
Why was I bamboozled?
We had Wicked Cyclone as #1. We had Thunderbird as #2. I don't think Fury was even #2 on our combined list. I think it was #3. And looking back on that, how silly do we look? How silly do we look? How silly do we look that we doubted the fact that a 325-foot B&M with that much speed and length could be as amazing as it is? And here it is. It runs away with it didn't win last year, but it ran away with the Thrilling 32 in its first year. But I'm getting the same thing. I'm trying to do the same thing with Steele Vengeance, because it might be that amazing, but I don't want to call it amazing before I know it's amazing.
Well, here's the bottom line. When I was bamboozled a few years ago, it was because Wicked Cyclone's POV was nothing like the final product of what we actually got.
Right.
That the problem is that I still contend that Wicked Cyclone dies at the end of the ride. I don't like it. I don't like it at all, that how it does that. And I feel that POV was misleading and led me to believe that maybe Wicked Cyclone was going to be this outstanding, amazing ride. I loved Iron Rattler, thought maybe this might be that, and it wasn't that. And here we are, fast forward to now this year, and we have the top 2 rides with Steele Vengeance and Twisted Timbers. And you know what, Danny Miller? I feel the exact same way about Wicked Cyclone, where I've been burned. So I don't know how to take Twisted Timbers. So is it going to be another Wicked Cyclone where those last few bunny hills are going to be like, I want to get off the ride now? Or is it going to have the speed to go through the entire course at a nice enough pace where, like, wow, these are really fun bunny hills? And I think that's going to determine whether or not Twisted Timbers is a really good ride. On the same token, is I think that's going to ultimately determine whether or not Steele Vengeance is going to be, quote unquote, the best ride in the world.
Right, and I'm glad you brought it back to that, because here's the thing: people know I love Wicked Cyclone. I know you don't, but I really enjoy Wicked Cyclone. I think you have to sit in the front row, because if you don't, you feel that lagging feeling, that sluggish feeling at the end of the ride.
Back row.
It's sit in the back row. It's very, very slow, and the last third of that ride, after that last barrel roll, where you do get some hang time in the back still, but the last few hills on Wicked Cyclone are uneventful in the back. In the front, they're still very fun, but see, and that's why with Steele Vengeance, I'm not sure, because the problem with Steele Vengeance is it's so damn long. And the mid-course is lower, it appears, than it is on Mean Streak. And it seems like there is so much track after that mid-course that isn't that high off the ground. And I see it having the same issues that Wicked Cyclone does and New Texas Giant does. Because you and I talked about this. We said if Steele Vengeance is the same length or even longer than New Texas Giant, it's going to have the same problem that New Texas Giant has, where it meanders at the end of the course. And even though I love Wicked Cyclone and I love New Texas Giant, they both meander at the end of the ride, especially when you're not in the front seat. So I fear the same with Steele Vengeance, and more so because it's so much longer than Wicked Cyclone and, Storm Chaser and whatnot. And Twisted Timbers, I think, has less of an opportunity to have that happen, which is why I'm not as concerned about it, which is why I have it higher than Steele Vengeance.
Well, here's what concerns me about Twisted Timbers, is that you're not starting off with that speed. You're starting off with a speed more like Storm Chaser, and how long is it going to maintain that speed is so like Steele Vengeance, the one hope I have is that Steele Vengeance is a hypercoaster, that you're going to get a ton of speed off that first hill. That first half is probably going to be amazing. I don't think there's a doubt in my mind that the first half of Steele Vengeance is going to be amazing. It's how much speed does it come off that brake run with, and I think that's the question mark. With Twisted Timbers, you don't have that start off of speed.
But there's a fundamental difference between Twisted Timbers and Storm Chaser, because after Storm Chaser, they both have the barrel roll first drop. But what does Storm Chaser do? It then goes over a big hill and has nice speed and nice airtime on that hill.
Yeah.
But then what does it do after that? It does this really high overbank stall turn, which kills a lot of the speed. And what does Twisted Timbers do? It does an overbank turn, but it's hugging the ground and it's very close to the ground. Then it does three, 4 bunny hills in quick succession, and after that does another overbank that's hugging the ground. So Twisted Timbers doesn't have these extremely high up moments like Storm Chaser does. It's going to hug the ground, which is why I think it'll maintain its speed longer into the course, whereas Storm Chaser, once it gets to that third and fourth element and goes high up and kind of does that stall element, it's a fun element, but it's almost counterproductive, because you get this great hang time in that overbank that Storm Chaser does after the airtime hill, but you burn off a lot of the speed and you're hanging up in the air, whereas Twisted Timbers doesn't have this element where it goes up in the air, hangs upside down for a little bit, and burns off the speed. It'll be burning off the speed while it's ripping through these low-to-the-ground turns and hills, which is why I think Twisted Timbers is less likely to stall out and meander at the end of the ride. And it's not that long of a ride.
Yeah.
So I think that's my logic there, is I'm counting on the fact that it doesn't have these super high 0G stall overbank turns in the middle of it.
I'm almost hoping that Twisted Timbers becomes almost what I thought Wicked Cyclone should have been.
Yes, that's what you and I said on announcement day. We said this is, well, and I think we said Storm Chaser. You said Wicked Cyclone too. I've never had a problem with Wicked Cyclone, but we kind of said this is what we wanted to see when they talked about Storm Chaser.
Yeah.
And I have the same expectations for Twisted Timbers that I did for Wicked Cyclone. I wasn't disappointed by Wicked Cyclone. You were. So hopefully, by you not looking forward to Twisted Timbers in that same regard, that maybe it might overperform and actually please you.
Well, number one, if it was a surprise by anyone on the Right Word Choice Awards on my list, number 2 on your list, I'm assuming?
Number 2, yeah. I mean, Steele Vengeance still looks like it's going to be an amazing ride. I'm not trying to take a dump all over Steele Vengeance here. I mean, I had it number 2 on my list, so I'm still very much looking forward to it. And part of that is the fact that Steele Vengeance is a little bit farther. It's a little bit farther away. Twisted Timbers is going to become my closest RMC. I think that and Wicked Cyclone are pretty much the same distance in opposite directions. But it's Cedar pointing the RMC. We talk about how we have to Cedar point it. Rob Decker says it all the time. We take the wing coaster and we Cedar point it. They took the inverted coaster and the stand-up coaster and we Cedar pointed it. They, to some regard, took the dive coaster and they Cedar pointed it. They're taking the RMC Iron Horse coaster and they're Cedar pointing it. And that in itself should be enough to get you excited. And I'm not going to go quite as far to say that this is a guaranteed shoe-in best steel coaster in the world. I'm not going that far, but I would be very surprised if this isn't for someone like me, been on over 600 roller coasters, almost 500 steel coasters. I will be disappointed if this isn't a top 15, top 10 steel coaster. If it's not there, I'm going to be slightly disappointed.
I'll be honest with you. I would almost be disappointed if this doesn't come into my top 5. That anything
does it have to be better than Maverick then? Let's talk about that, because you and I both have Maverick in our top 5s. Does it have to be better? Does it have to be the best ride at the park?
No. I don't think it does, and I don't think it will be. I still think Maverick might be better. I still think a lot of people are going to think Millennium Force is better. Now I have Millennium Force high at like number 6. So obviously, if this comes in my top 5, this has got to be better than Millennium Force for me. So,
well, I have Millennium Force, I think, like right at the edge of my top 10. So I think
this has got to be a good, like, with the hype that is coming along with this ride, it has to be top 5.
And the fact that it's been what people have been asking for since New Texas Giant, 2010, 2011. People have been asking for this for 6 or 7 years, and now they're finally getting it. And they've literally, I mean, let's be honest, the ride's only been announced for, 3-4 months, right? 4 or 5 months, I think, back in August. Yeah. But at the end of the day, people have been hyping this ride up for 6-7 years, because as soon as this happened in New Texas Giant, people looked at Mean Streak and says, well, it's got a similar layout. And when New Texas Giant was a huge hit, they said, do it to Mean Streak, do it to Mean Streak. And year after year, we heard the rumors, and year after year, nothing happened. And now it's happening, and people have been hoping for this for 6 or 7 years. So this has to be as good as people are hoping it's going to be. And if it's not, you're going to have some angry Cedar Point RMC fanboys, which is going to be a dangerous combination.
Well, yeah.
But the problem is, I don't think the fanboys are going to be disappointed by it, because they've backed themselves into a corner, because they're going to have to think this is the best coaster in the world. Otherwise, they look like fools for hyping it up so much. So I don't think many people are going to be disappointed by it.
Well, here, I don't think many people, I don't think you're going to be disappointed by it. I don't think the RMC fanboys are going to be disappointed, because no one else, because the one failing that this ride could have, I'm not even saying it does have it, the one failing that this ride could have is that it's slow at the end. And the way New Texas Giant performed in the Hawker poll, the way it performs in our poll, the way people talk about New Texas Giant and Wicked Cyclone and Storm Chaser, the way people talk about any one of these rides, there seems to be at least one person between Storm Chaser, Wicked Cyclone, or New Texas Giant. Every single enthusiast has one of those 3 rides in their top 5, except for who? This guy. This guy. I'm the only one that doesn't have one of those.
Well, I don't either.
Well, whatever. You get that.
sorry to cut you off on your rant there, but no, I mean, at the end of the day, Steele Vengeance is going to be one of, if not the best ride of the 2018 class, and it's going to be one of the best steel coasters in the world right now. It's going to be, I'm not going to say it's going to be the best. I'm not going to go that far, but it should be one of the best steel coasters anywhere. It should be a top 10, maybe, like you said, maybe even top 5 steel coaster. I think it's absolutely going to be in that discussion. It should be. The airtime looks like there's going to be amazing airtime and a lot of it. It looks like it's going to have a lot of the hang time inversion elements that we've come to expect from some of these RMCs. It's going to have the height. It's going to have the speed for definitely at least the first half, first 2/3 of it for sure. It's going to be inside the structure. It's going to have the visual part of it that some of the other ones don't have.
Because New Texas Giant, they tunneled everything, right? Like
they tunneled a lot of things. They did put some lights in the tunnels. Wicked Cyclone, I think, has some of the best visuals in terms of going through its own structure, because the entire second half of that ride is within the structure of the first half, which I really like. And I think, you talk about the speed aspect of Wicked Cyclone. I like the front seat so much in Wicked Cyclone because not only do you get the wind in your face and you get the sensation of speed, you also get the near misses through the inversions and the airtime hills and the little bunny hops that are hidden within the structure. You have those cross beams above your head, and through the barrel rolls, they're on either side of you. You have that visual sensation that you're about to hit something, which enhances the sensation of speed, even though you're not going very fast at all, which I think is what saves Wicked Cyclone in my mind from feeling like a slow ride, because when you're in that front seat and you get that visual, it feels like you're going faster than you are. And that, I think, is where Steele Vengeance could be saved if it does have the problem with being slow at the end, because so much of the second half of the ride takes place within the structure of itself, except for like the last 2 or 3 hills that go up onto the brake run. That's where Steele Vengeance is going to have a big advantage, because it's going to use the fact that Mean Streak was such an impressive looking structure and such an impressive structure to go through at the end of the ride. Even on Mean Streak, you weren't going very fast at the end of the ride, but it was very impressive to go through that structure and see how massive it was. And Steele Vengeance is going to use that to its advantage, which is going to make it even better.
Yeah. So I have to say I'm pretty excited by it.
I got one more thing to ask then here before we wrap up for tonight. Did you have any on your top 10 list that didn't get into our overall top 10? Because all of the ones on the voters list we talked about, but there were 2 on mine that we didn't talk about, and I wanted to see if there were any on yours that we missed.
The only one on mine that did not make it in was I had Cyborg and Harley Quinn at number 8, the new flat ride. So that was the only one. Because I know how to properly rank things, Danny. So
no, so my number 8 and my number 10 weren't on here. My number 8 was actually Phoenix, which is the new B&M wing coaster going into Toverland in the Netherlands. And the reason that is because we are working on a trip to Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands for 2019. And even though this is a 2018 ride, the fact that I may get to ride it in the not-so-distant future makes me excited for it. It looks similar. It almost looks like a cross between like Swarm and Gatekeeper with some of its elements. And the cars look outstanding. They look like these golden, Phoenix-like birds. So I'm really excited to possibly ride that one in the not-so-distant future. And then number 10, probably the ride that's closest to me in 2018, is actually Oscar's Wacky Taxi, the Gravity Group wood coaster going into Sesame Place, which is only about an hour from where my parents live in Allentown. So that's definitely one I'm going to get on. And that one was actually number 11 in the voters poll. A few people did vote for that one, so I'm looking forward to having a Wooden Warrior type ride, an hour down the road. And with my Busch Gardens SeaWorld pass, which is good until the end of October, that's a park that I get in for free with that pass.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly looking forward to checking that one out and seeing what that is tough. So those were the 2 that were on my list that we didn't get to talk about tonight.
Well, As always, thank you for tuning in to this very first episode of COASTER-net Uncut of 2018.
Episode 69, as it were.
Well, I don't know. Should we cameras like that? No.
And with that,
we leave you on this special episode of the most anticipated rides of 2018. As always, I'm Andy Robarczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm a disgusted Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Right on, Ride Warriors.
Stay safe, everyone. See you next time.